welcome to After Drive. We are at Classic Car Club Manhattan. I got Mike and Zach here in the 1971 Bronco. Why are we doing that? I don't know, you'll see in a second. Also, we're talking about the Japanese sports cars you need to buy right now. That's today on After Drive. Come back after that thing that we do. So welcome to After Drive. Today we're talking about the Japanese sports cars you need to buy right now and the cars that inspired us to want to buy them. How about that? But Mike and Zach are here in the 71 Ford Bronco, one of my favorite cars of all time. I've had a thing for this thing for about probably as long as I've been alive. What the heck is what's the deal with this thing? And why does everybody love these things so much? And what about the chicks? I hear the chicks dig them too.
Yeah.
You can blame us for all that.
I know.
Yeah, I think we're solely in the nexus of that problem.
I think we're responsible for about 3/4 of the Bronco pollution in the New York metro area.
Yeah, Northeast.
We have littered this town with Broncos because we have them, and people come to us and say, "Man, I love that Bronco you guys used to have. Did you sell it? Can I buy it? Oh, can you help me find one?" Now, I mean, we have 3 Broncos in our possession
Current
now.
state, yeah.
One that we're building for someone, 2 that we own, 1 that they're selling. It's just.
I think they're great design though, right? For me, the best design is always simple, and this is what this is. It's lifted. You can go over anything with it. There's no complication to it. You could even, you could leave the top off when it's raining. Don't recommend it, but you can.
It's definitely one of the most iconic automotive designs and the most understated.
Yeah.
Just for its simplicity, and
It's kind of beachy, kind of military.
Yes, it's beachy military.
Yeah.
I did say though, women really do gravitate towards the old Broncos.
Now that's interesting because I mean, obviously in those old Juicy Fruit commercials.
I was about to say, because she got this
there's-
freewheeling lifestyle, right?
Right.
Gonna go to the
California,
beach now.
California lifestyle, like we were like chicks in bikinis.
These do go out. We have pads for surfboards, and that's usually they wind up in the Hamptons or Montauk every weekend with a surfboard on the roof and
I mean, it's a good look.
someone living the life.
But I mean, the cool thing is like in the old days when they used to race them in Baja, right? It was that.
The Bill Strop edition.
Yeah, the big Oli, the
Yeah.
was it Olympia beer livery, right? Is that the?
I guess so. It's
I
orange
want to
and
call
white
it
and the
Olympia
blue
beer
roof.
livery on it, right?
Totally.
How great
They
is
did
that?
a lot of liveries back in the day.
Yeah, it's when you could have beer on your car.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think these things have the same kind of universal appeal as like a Mustang too. Like a '60s Mustang, you don't have to be a muscle car guy to like it. They're beautiful, kind of cool, even European design things. So
Yeah.
you can have a 911 and a Bronco, and people won't question it.
My really small thing that I don't like about them is the window frame.
Oh, the fact
See,
that
the Scouts,
they're
international
solid.
Scouts, I don't think were nearly as good looking, but they didn't have this. And when the windows are down and the top is off, you just get that really smooth line that just has a windshield sticking up.
Yeah.
These bug me a bit, but I'll certainly live. I'll survive.
Yeah.
I still love them.
All right, so the other stuff we wanted to talk about. So Japanese sports cars, right? So the 1990s, 2000s we're talking about, because we did the show a couple of weeks ago about the NSX. And it's so weird because this is just a dopey show where we talk crap about cars in a dopey studio. And people have been coming up to me, and saying, hey, I really watched that NSX show and I really wanted to buy one. And one guy, I'm not gonna say where he's from, but he was here one night for the Jalopnik party and said to me that he bought one after seeing that show, and now his boss, who he bought it from, wants it back.
Well,
because he saw it. I mean,
luckily we've owned our own already because we kind of priced ourselves out of that market too. We went to go buy another one because
so we're doing like a pump and dump here. It's like we should. I didn't think we had that.
So
kind
let's
of
think
pull.
of the
like
next,
Martha Stewart.
the next car. I think Priuses. Go buy a Prius right now. That's the next part of it.
Exactly. The cars you definitely.
And things like Ford GTs, they're going to tank. Those things value is
Useless. They have no trunks.
Trunks. Why'd you want that?
No storage at all.
But the cars you definitely don't want are the 3 cars we're talking about today.
Yeah, these are the cars you don't want.
These you definitely do
for
not want
really
to buy.
obvious reasons. Let's get into them.
Exactly. So we asked the audience, or our Facebook audience, which are the 3 Japanese sports cars that are the most iconic from that era, from the 90s, 2000s era. Basically, we'll just rattle them off because, I mean, I think a lot of people talked about some of the special editions, like the Subaru 22B, right? The rally
Those were a bit
one.
unobtainium.
That was unobtainium. I mean, they sold out in like 30 minutes, right? So that would be on the list because it's sweet and Colin McRae, and we don't have to talk more about that.
Right. They
But
speak for themselves.
They speak for themselves. But really, the sort of the hero cars of the era, according to our readers, generally it's NSX, which we talked about.
Right.
Second one is obviously Skyline, you know, GTR. My favorite is the R33. I know a lot of people said R32 to R34, so generally that era.
I like the look of the R34.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's more, it's a little more Xbox.
Yeah, that's
Self-fruition. I don't know.
That's what I don't like about it. I love the R33 to me is perfect because
It's a little leaner.
it's leaner and it's more GT looking.
Yeah,
it looks like a
It's closer to the original. I like the original ones. They look
Yeah.
like old school Japanese muscle cars.
the Hakasuka boxes in the
so
old days,
cool, right?
and then the next gen. Those
like
are
like a Celica on meth.
you guys.
Awesome, those cars.
I don't know what they're going for right now, but you guys need to get one of those in here.
Yeah.
It would be cool,
There's
wouldn't
been
it?
a couple.
We gotta make a statement.
Pop up once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the second one obviously is Skyline. The third one is has been a matter of a little bit of controversy because it's generally between two cars. And both of them are cars that I guess I wouldn't necessarily put in the same league as the NSX and the Skyline GTR of that era. It's either the Super Turbo,
Right.
Mark IV Super Turbo,
Sure.
or the FD body Mazda RX-7. And for me, it's Mazda all day long.
For me, it's Mazda just because I want to be able to say Wankel 3 times.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know,
Yeah, I think I'd cast a vote for Mazda too, and it almost ties back to our last conversation that those cars, Supra on the edge, it's all about driving experience, you know. And the Supra is, you can get 1,000 horsepower, make into a drag strip machine, but they strip down the body, shed 200 pounds from the weight of the previous model. They made these really excellent drivers cars,
And that's
what it's all about, you know?
Exactly, and the interesting thing about that is the last show we did was we were talking about the horsepower wars. Now, back in those days, there was that Japanese gentleman's agreement thing between car manufacturers about they were going to stay under 276 horsepower. Right.
Wow.
So whether you believe
it's
that's
155 top speed.
That
part
was
of
the German.
too?
No, that's the
Germans
German
too,
guys.
but they all seem to have the same.
Yeah, that 155. Yeah, I think they sort of followed that a little bit.
Okay.
And now, whether you believe that it's public relations thing on the part of, in Japan, the speed limit was 62. So, what are you doing building cars that are too powerful for that?
Right.
Or whether it was really about Japanese GT racing homologation, right? Where these cars are going to be racing each other. So, at least on paper,
Try to keep them in the same.
keep them in the same
So it's competitive and fun to watch. Yeah.
Exactly. So the cars we're talking about are firmly in there because basically after 2005 or something, this went away.
Right.
But the cars, the NSX, it was 276, right? These are all about 276. But
Supra though, wasn't that 3?
Supra was 300. Well, that's the dirty little secret is that they probably tested at higher than that. And don't tell me that those R33 and R34 Skylines weren't 300 wheel horsepower.
Yeah, they were claimed to be. When people brought them on dynos, it was claimed to be.
Right.
Which is the same thing that happens now. Like, how long could GTR and Nissan have that marketing scheme? Well, it's not really 500, but it's really 510.
Right.
I have a really soft spot for the Supra.
Yeah.
And it's only because, not because of its driving characteristics or anything like that, but at the time when I was, I guess 17 or about, that's the car I learned how to drive stick on.
Really?
And I was taught by a woman.
Oh.
I'm okay to admit it. That's right.
That's very.
It's a pretty good instructor too. I'm probably not the easiest car to learn how to drive stick on, but a parking lot, half a clutch, we had it taken care of.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I sort of like that was like the car that I have a certain gravity for it. But I do think the Mazda, I've driven that and I think it's probably a little bit more fun. It feels lighter. I don't know if it is, but feels a little bit more nimble. A little
probably more better balance.
Supra always felt a bit heavier, a bit more of like a GT car.
Yeah, and if you think about with all the automotive resources we have at our disposal now, we can get in a lot of cars that will have great power delivery, probably better than a stock Supra.
Right.
But you can't get in a car that's going to give the sort of ergonomics, look, feel, driving dynamics of an RX-7 because they can't engineer it like that anymore. The sills have to be too high. It has to have too many airbags.
It's true.
It has to be too heavy.
It comes down to a lot of cases. It comes down to requirements and stuff. Yeah. There is the Wankel issue with oiling and all that.
I have an
stuff.
issue with that too because I raced a 1972 Opel in the 24 Hours of Lemons.
Okay.
With one of my
remember that
Team Scuderia Craptastic.
Yes.
Coming back, by the way.
You were right next to us in the pits.
Yeah, it was highly problematic. It was a beautiful car.
Yeah.
And the concept of having this little like baby Corvette with a rotary Mazda engine in it was certainly romantic. It didn't work very well, and we built it in the middle of like a cornfield outside of Chicago in Illinois. So there's no parts. So we took the fuel rails off. Because at the moment, that seemed like a good idea.
Seemed like the thing to do.
And we decided, let's carburet it, but we didn't have a carburetor. So we took one off a Harley. None of these things worked. So I ended up saying, like, that car eventually blew up during the race. We spent most of our time wrenching on it. We did win Heroic Fix of the Weekend Award. That was fulfilling, but...
So the cool thing about that car was the attempts that you guys made at cooling, because I think you had, like, dryer pipes, like there's, and they were coming up through the...
He basically wore his like welding gear. Yeah, we had, well, we'd do 2 laps and the temp would be like 230 and we'd pull in and shut it off and he would have like his welding gloves and everything and just like a man, he took it every time. He just opened up the radiator, took a boiling bath, put new water in and we'd go do 2 laps. I think all weekend we did something like 26 laps.
Yeah.
People enjoyed watching
cool.
the car.
I was rooting for you.
Yeah. It was fun, but like, wow, that was really... It was a hard weekend with that Wankel.
But that motor dying, that wasn't even the end of it. Like that, because you guys put a new motor in, and then took it racing the rain with terrible brakes.
Yeah, and we over-engineered. We had to drop the floor so we could fit it with our helmets and everything.
Yeah.
And so, the only way you knew that you were turning was that everything in the window started going, and so it had like no feel. It was like driving a piece of iron, but it was beautiful, and that rotary engine was fun, although. And it wasn't the engine's fault.
It was in the spirit of Lemons.
Yes,
also.
I think more than most cars there. Yeah.
So
a piece of shit.
Yeah,
is what it was.
But the so the RX-7, the FD RX-7 had some problems with the pre-cats. I think would clog and it would blow the engine. I mean there was
and the seals because it was a triangle shape. And the seals would go a lot.
Right. There was there were issues with vacuum hoses and just sort of general like.
Well, I think it's also a little different.
Stuff.
It's exotic, and that sort of makes it very interesting in its own way.
And it's a little bit more accessible to buy. So that's why we're sort of segueing from the hero cars into the cars that you need to buy right now because they are the accessible versions of the cars that we think are the hero cars.
Right. So the hero cars. The RX-7 NSX.
Skyline.
What's our range? We're saying it's probably 25 to 50 grand.
I mean,
generally for the hero, right?
Well, for the hero, I mean, actually, for a Skyline, it's a lot more.
Yeah.
And for an NSX, it's sort of, it's.
Oh, I mean, every time we do the show, they go up 20%. So
exactly.
$70,000 for 91 NSX now, man. It's
I mean, you could still get one for 30, I guess, in decent shape. But the thing with all these cars, RX-7 is the segue point because the best one I saw, the guy wanted 35, right?
That's good value for money,
but
even for the hero.
Yeah, 20,000 miles on it.
Low mileage.
Really low mileage. It looks like it was well taken care of. Obviously, I don't know. It's on eBay right now. If it might still be there while this shows.
Where is it? Where
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think California.
We'll get Adam on that.
Beat you to it.
Adam's watching right now. He's gonna buy it.
So, other than that, that's the best one I saw. And the guy wants 35. Maybe you can get him into the 20s, but the best ones below that are like 15 to 20. Yeah. The ones that are unmolested by like wannabe Fast and Furious guys.
Yeah.
And the ones where they've been well taken care of within the craziness, which is taking care of an RX-7 well.
Right.
Because a lot of people have done things like taken the sequential turbos off and put in a single. They've done other tuning things, and in the best case, they've done them really well.
Right.
In the worst case, they've added 600 horsepower and popped the motor like 5 times.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but of those 3 cars we talked about in the beginning, that's the best. That's the most accessible one.
Out of all the cars we've ever spoken to, though, I would tell people to buy these with caution, even though you should own them and they're great driving experiences. Is that they are so heavily tied to the tuning community, that go with someone who really knows what they're talking about, because you
Right.
can wind up in a money pit.
And at the same time, in the same way it's happened to the NSXs, it's going to make the unmolested, or at least properly molested, carefully molested ones
Properly
really
molested.
rare,
I like
you
that.
know?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think the RX-7, you kind of don't want one that hasn't been changed at all, but you don't want one that's been changed to the detriment or blows up.
Yeah.
Right.
And because they were accessible and people were throwing tuning stuff at them, a lot of them are blown up and kind of ruined now. So
Right. So if you find the one with a downpipe instead of a pre-cat,
Yeah.
and it can still pass emissions, that might actually be be than
Yeah.
getting a completely original one.
Yeah.
So it's the properly molested is actually a good. Buy the most properly molested car you can afford.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the same way, it's the same story as NSX, because there's going to be so few of them now.
Yeah.
relative to where they started.
But again, the tuning thing is the reason why we're talking about them. I mean, we were talking about this generational thing where it went from
Yeah.
muscle cars to tuner cars as being the kind of energy in automotive enthusiasm.
I think it was a gateway for our generation and younger than us into cool cars, for sure.
Yeah.
They're a little cheaper, they've been used already, but certainly if you go online, there's 1,000 forums on how to add more horsepower to it, and how to adjust your car and how to tune it. And that's sort of cool. I like them just because they got people to work on their cars in their garages.
Right.
And that's
and
cool.
and
For a
be
guy,
able,
that's cool.
yeah, exactly, and being sort of nerdy enough to deal with all of the new technical things that came along
Yeah, because
after.
they're not easy.
Right, because when I
couldn't do
started,
it.
when I started, I had a small block Chevy. I mean, that was, what the heck is easier to work on than a small block Chevy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then all of a sudden these kids are in, with the, dealing with ECU issues and
Yeah.
reflashes and all that
Laptop
stuff, and I
tuners.
was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
entry
right.
to the laptop tuner
The
generation.
laptop tuner generation. But all of that stuff sort of, the ground zero of that was the 90s, 2000s, this Japanese sports car era. And if you take the Subaru, the Subaru thing and the Mitsubishi thing out of it a little bit and just look at the kind of
Yeah.
purpose-built sports car stuff,
Okay.
and if you kind of are okay with the fact that the Skyline is not actually purpose-built, it's actually kind of in the same vein,
Yeah.
but it is a little bit.
It was properly molested by the
molested.
factory.
Right, exactly. So the other two cars that
Yeah.
they need to buy right now
Right.
is a car we've talked about in the past on the show, but it's the obviously Honda S2000,
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
right? And the Toyota MR2 Turbo second gen.
Okay.
So those are two cars that I think are in that category of cars that are going to be, if you can find one and it's been properly molested,
Yeah.
are going to be the cars that you want to have going into this
Right.
the
So the
next generation.
S2000 is certainly a generation ahead. I
Yeah.
think that's a fantastic car. If you can fit in it, and I don't say that about many cars, I do find that one to be really tight. And if people are a little tall, that is a hard car to get into, because I don't think the
The
steering
steering
column
wheel is
doesn't-
fixed and
it's like
bolted to your
down
knees.
in your
It's
lap.
like, yeah.
And so that makes it difficult for guys that are like 6'1" and above.
Mm-hmm.
But what a fun car. And they're still new enough that if it's not overly bastardized, and I don't feel like a lot of them are. I think that the people, when you see a worked S2000, I feel like they were done a little bit more professionally than the other cars that we're talking about. But
feels
this
like
one
it.
that's straight out the box, they're a really good car. They're fast. It's still newish, so everything's going to work
Yeah.
a bit better.
Yeah, and again, back on the horsepower thing. I mean, the most astonishing statistic of that car is that it has the highest horsepower per liter
Per
naturally
liter.
aspirated motor until the 458.
Until the
Ferrari,
458 came along, yeah.
which is really impressive. But it's not actually the best thing about the car. Best thing about the car is the chassis and the way
Yeah.
it drives. It's a proper sports car.
Best
So-
drive I ever had in that car was coming back sort of from the Bear Mountain region, even though that's not where I was.
Uh-huh.
And it was pouring out. So I drove through Bear Mountain in the rain in that car. And, obviously I checked up on the speed and the pace a little bit and everything, but you could really feel a car at work. And that car in the rain, it was perfect, really well balanced. And if you wanted to create a little bit of oversteer, it certainly was happy to do it. But that's really not the way I drive. It was just tracking perfectly through every corner, and you could really feel the communication from the tires to my hands was perfect. It's
Yeah.
a really cool car.
Well,
It's a fun drive.
but the thing that people think about as a sort of catch is the electric steering. And the other thing that it went from throttle by
Throttle by
cable
wire,
to
yeah.
throttle by wire,
Yeah.
and both of those things, if you go to the forums, and I'll put all the links to all the forum stuff because there's so much really good forum buyer's guide information and stuff out there that we don't need to talk about right here because they've already been compiled. But, you know, you could read those arguments all day long on whether the electric steering is...
I'm just going to say, nerdy statistic doesn't matter. I never knew. We had one for 3.5 years. I never knew it had electric steering and drive-by-wire. I didn't care. Didn't affect the driving experience at all.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
There you go. So it's not getting in the way, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And the MR2, huh?
MR2, second gen turbo, not your favorite car.
I'm not there. To be fair, I've never driven one.
Oh God! All right, so
But
that's the first thing you need
I haven't
to
driven
do.
one, but I'm a little bit stuck on the.
I think we know someone who has one.
Who?
Well, I have a third gen.
Oh, right.
I have the Spider, which actually, but
Which is that when you get all flexy and heavy and it's kind of.
You bought the wrong.
No,
one.
I bought the no. So no, the thing is, mine is great. It's just that if I had the engine from the second gen, I got the better chassis. I definitely the better chassis, and I think the better steering. But the second gen was also heavier.
I'll tell you, I'm sure it's a great driving car and all that. I like the engine. I've experienced that engine in other things, and transmount mid-engine car for cheap money. I get it, but like where I grew up from, and I hate to revert back to the stereotype. So I'm always like, don't worry about the stereotype of the car. But some of them are true, you know, like 350 and 370Zs. It was Clarkson. He said they're pornographers' cars, and they are. They're fun to drive, but like, ooh, you know. But growing up where I grew up, 22 miles east of here, that was like a rich girl's car.
Yeah, which
sort of like just burned into my psyche.
Wow. So the thing about that car is it came out, right? All the British journalists, I forgot which magazine it was. I think it might have been Car, but they did their test on it, and they took the shot of it spinning, because basically they said that it was all about snap oversteer.
Right. Short little wheelbase.
Short little wheelbase.
Yeah, which to be fair, and that's like the stuff of legend. Like every great car we're talking about had like tricky handling in the early days.
Yeah.
That makes it better.
And it was, and you know, like,
Well, you should be driving S2000s in the rain down mountain
S2000s,
roads, but
the early ones
Exactly.
are tricky. Yeah.
but in the way that Senna helped
like
tune, yeah, exactly. In the way that Senna helped tune the NSX, Dan Gurney helped tune first of the second gen MR2s.
Okay.
So Gurney was involved in that, and it was a little twitchy at first.
Yeah.
And then they adjusted the suspension geometry and made it, you know, a
Safe.
little easier and a little more understeery and whatever. But the understeery is
whenever a car
a
car is directed by a race car driver, they're always twitchy and have
Yeah.
massive oversteer, because that's
and of course he's got the
more fun, better handling,
Right.
get into corners better.
And he's got
if you
the
know what you're
reflexes
doing.
to catch it, right?
Yes, exactly. Right.
Anyway, so that's my pick. Those are the three, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to put all of the info on those three cars: the RX-7, the FD body RX-7, the S2000,
Right.
and the MR2 second gen turbo. I'm going to put all the links.
Which
under
one do you buy?
Which one do you buy? Well, you buy the. By the way, so this is the thing with all of these, is that the reason why they're going up in value is that they're getting harder and harder to find,
Right.
completely unmolested or well molested, whichever one you want to get.
Properly molested.
Properly molested.
I'm gonna get a phone call about that.
Properly molested.
I would go NSX. Still what I would get.
Okay,
What's on the list?
but that's not on the list because
but it was, we talked about it before.
we talked about before. All right, so you still. I mean, NSX.
Don't contain me in the box.
I will not be contained. NSX. All right.
If
so
it's not the NSX, then I go GTR.
You're gonna go GTR. Okay, that's another one that we weren't. Those are the hero cars.
Those are the hero cars. He's picking the obtainable.
So you gotta go. So you're going.
They're obtainable.
No, but
All right, so you're
all right.
RX-7 then,
Yeah, I guess
See,
so. Because I could say Wankel.
because you could say Wankel. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna put one not even in there. The earlier Supers are actually the Celica, just because when I was
Like 80s.
8 years old, I bought, saved up all summer to buy like this $500, it's big money in 84, remote control race
Yes,
car.
you did, didn't you? Yeah.
It was the Tamiya
Yeah,
Toyota
of
Celica
course.
Group B rally
Nice,
car.
nice.
And then, whoever does the,
I had the rail cars.
Oh, so wait a minute. So 4-track is your pick.
oh yeah, man.
So we didn't even say 4-track. Well, 4-track.
Well, no, the 4-track was when they lost the box flares. I want the box flares.
want the box flares, yeah.
So I'm.
So
I'll
you're
get back.
throwing all
and
the.
I'm throwing
Throw it all out.
And the Jalopnik guy said this thing up there today. The whatever that article is, where they pick two cars that are cheap. and they had the Chrysler Starion version, which was like the Mitsubishi kind of
Right.
box flare thing for $5,000.
Mitsubishi
Starion.
GT 3000.
Yeah.
3000 GT. We didn't talk about that. We just have to say it because everybody's gonna say, "Oh, you
Yeah.
forgot about that one."
Well-
Very cool car, active.
Yeah.
Active.
So we just threw, basically we
yeah.
started a show
Yeah.
and we talked about it and then we just threw the whole thing out, which is fine. It's cool. But I mean, I'm gonna go with, I love the RX-7. I don't know whether I could, because I have a lot of things to do. I don't have a lot of time to spend sorting it out,
Yeah.
which I would love to do that. So I'm gonna have to go with the Toyota because I'm most familiar with that. But if not for that, if I had a little bit more time, if I were properly leisured out on the weekends, it would definitely be RX-7.
Okay.
Yeah, so my advice would be spend the bucks you need to get the right RX-7 that someone else is, and then you don't have to worry about it, supposedly. You know, they say the guys that really know those cars, they build them for reliability first, and then they
Yeah.
get
I'd like
the
to
benefit of a little horsepower along the way.
I'd like to know at what point is the horsepower too much on a car? Because there are tons of them with 900 horsepower and what have you. That's sort of like beyond anything I would want.
I think it's fine right from the factory.
Yeah, right?
I'm not I think exactly what you said because the chassis is tuned so well. It's the chassis tuning is fantastic. With 300 horsepower, it's the perfect car.
Yeah. Going around a corner, 900 horsepower.
Yeah.
Or 5 in that car is
I mean,
a
Yeah.
handful.
Yeah,
Probably not going to
I
get you
think,
anywhere any
I
quicker.
think you delete the sequential turbos, put the single in, you lose all the vacuum hose stuff. You got a pretty nice, reliable car that with a modern turbo is probably still about 300 horsepower.
Yeah.
right?
there you go.
And reliable, hopefully. That's the idea.
reliable rotary
But let
engine.
someone else do all the hard work, unless it's your thing. You know?
Unless it's your thing. Unless you're, because I just heard, I was at a car show over the weekend and I heard a guy with a 74, I'm going to say RX-3, I guess it was. He had a 2-rotor drag motor because I mean it was a drag, basically it was a drag car.
A Wankel drag car.
Yeah, dude, it sounded it's that wankle, that crackle when
Yeah.
it's like that. It's
Yeah.
it's insane.
Like a sport bike on the limit.
Exactly, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, that's cool.
So anyway, obviously the RX-7 is not going to sound like that because it's all damped out, but
Right.
whatever. Anyway, that's After Drive for today. I'm going to put all the information that you need on the bottom thing.
Make sense of what we just
Make
talked
sense
about.
of what we
You know
just talked about, or to add the actual details of what we
Right.
sort of glossed over a
Right.
lot of.
And then next time, what do? We
Next-
take something like that racing.
And next time we take something like that racing.
Yeah.
When are we going to do that?
Can we do after drive and drive? After drive?
After the drive, after drive.
I'd like to drive.
I think we should start driving.
We should do a track day with the cars that we've talked about.
Yeah.
As Zach just said.
We'll talk to Ian. Ian, can we do that?
Can we do a track day, Ian?
All right, cool. Bang my head. See exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Ah,
see?
you bastard.
Best.
And that's After Drive. Hey. All right, I'll see you guys next week. That's After Drive for today. Read below for the detail stuff.
Twitter,
And I will see you
Facebook.
guys. Yes, Twitter, Facebook, and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Flash
And
drive,
visit
flash
the Facebook
Twitter
thread that
hashtag.
inspired this show a little bit. The link is below. And I will see you guys next week.
So we always like to do a bumper at the end of our segments, and this time we wanted to introduce you to one of our race cars. We have a couple of them. This is one of our Spec Miata racers, and you know, we're always talking about how fast cars are on the road and how much horsepower McLaren has, and we also always talk about how irrelevant that is a lot, but this is sort of speed that's really relevant. And racing's a lot of fun. You can do it way cheaper than you think you can, so I'd suggest that everybody who watches drive, go to SCCA, I think it's scca.org. Google
Something like
it.
that.
And try to start off with Miata racing. It's relatively cheap. You can pick up a race car for this, like this one, for around 18,000, a little more, a little less, depends on what quality shape it's in. And then head to the track, man. You learn more in one weekend on a racetrack than you would years driving around your neighborhood on the back roads, you know, hooliganing around and making all the old ladies in town nervous of you. There's also a lot of good resources out there.
Yeah, you get to the track. I mean, you're going to learn how to wrench and build your own car, but there's lots of great resources there at the track with other teams. Guys like Flat Out, Chris Windsor, Planet Miata. You know, all these guys are there every weekend with a huge semi-truck full of parts ready to help you out and figure out how to make it work. So if you want to get in the racing, actually put all this to work that we keep talking about, the driving experience, this is a culmination of it. This is a whopping 1.6 liter 4-cylinder, and it's about the most fun I've had driving a car. So
We're racing Watkins Glen this weekend. So by the time this comes out, we will have already completed. So if you go over to classiccarclubmanhattan.com, you can see how we did. You could probably buy our swag by then as well. So you can at least reserve a shirt. I always come accessorized. All right. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you then.